just say, Herr President, how I want to warmly thank you for the hospitality and for the warmth of the reception that you have given to Sabina and I. I'm accompanied on this trip by Minister Sir Thomas Byrne, Minister for Europe. Somebody like myself as well, by the way, who speaks this language, which is very important to us. And I'm very delighted that it is in use now in the full sense of the European Union. We meet at terrible times when, as you have put it so well, once again, we're talking about war in Europe. I think that in the course of our discussions that we've had in the topics that we were able to cover, well, obviously there is so much that there are so many strands that Austria and Ireland cover together. We're both countries that are interested in disarmament. We're both countries, as well as that Vienna itself is the home to so many of the institutions of the multilateral system. We are both supporters of diplomacy. I think in diplomacy, even when it appears that it's running out, just to be continued. We also, the other characteristic that you mentioned as well, is that we are members of the European Union. We are, I think, as members of the European Union, part of the very strong opinion that the Union must be a union that delivers what its founders sought in peace, rather than a union would drift inexorably to a competition in relation to armaments. We are also at one in our unequivocal condemnation at the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, of the atrocities that have been committed. And I think as well for the discussion it would be very important, and where Austria and other countries will have a role, is ensuring that the investigations that are carried out will be ones that are carried out through the multilateral system, which will which will enormously enhance their credibility, acceptability and their speed. I think as well some of the institutions located in Vienna have already the mechanisms for that kind of entry for cooperation with implementing decisions taken by the United Nations.
President Michael D. Higgins has said it's time to have a well-informed debate in Irish society about Ireland's neutrality in the wake of the war in Ukraine, and he called for an accelerated timetable for EU membership for Ukraine. He was speaking at the start of a two-day visit to Austria, following talks with the country's President Alexander van der Bellen.
Everybody will benefit from an informed debate on neutrality. I think as well there are significant shifts in periods of time. From about the 1970s, 80s on, people used the concept, as it did the Taoiseach as recently, positive neutrality. This is that you don't interpret neutrality as simply a statement of weakness or absence of strength or absence of aggression, but rather what you can do with the concept as an instrument.
Join us? start by introducing colleagues on my side. We're all Irish. They're all Irish because we have many. The reason why we have so many Irish colleagues here is because they are so good. So people sometimes know why there are so many Irish colleagues in senior positions.
So, Rector, distinguished colleagues, ambassadors and friends and students, which are very important to me. It's a very great pleasure to always to get back in a university where I've had some of the most rewarding period of my life as a university teacher. I should say too, all of that time now in memory too, both as a student in Ireland and in the United Kingdom and the United States and as a teacher in these different places, I was always conscious that nobody of my family attended a university. In fact, second level education wasn't generally available in Ireland. And it's something that is very important to me in relation to the role of the universities, not just in terms of their access, but their ability to be able to resonate with the origins and life of those that they welcome to a place of study. We are meeting at terrible times in the midst of a pandemic that will not go away fast enough, war, the risk of climate catastrophe, and also as well as that, maybe it is in these circumstances that a return to the thread of art that might bring us together is particularly appropriate. So we have a rich shared history, and we certainly have one that has resulted in ever closer ties, cemented by our joint European Union membership. There are things that we share in the membership of the European Union, and we're also countries that describe ourselves as neutral countries. That gives us a perspective of mind that I have been speaking in formal meetings over the last couple of days, an immense opportunity to give a very distinctive contribution, to seek, as we all try to seek, to bring an end to the terrible killings, the violence, the breaches of international law, the humanitarian scandals that are taking place, and from which none of us in Europe, who believe in Europe, can most ever suggest there be any impunity. But responding and making sure there is no means that we must take our actions through the multilateral system on behalf of us all, not simply on behalf of the strong. One is not speaking, I think, in terms of the arts only. What one is speaking about is the way of life of people, the customs, as I call about it, the recalled and imagined sensory experiences of the body. I think as well, it is one speaks of culture in that sense as the spirit of the Europeans, their ways of life, sense of home, place, region, history and imagination. And that was always the case. It is one of the reasons why the failure of regionalism within the European Union was such a tragic loss, because within those categories you could have been able to refute the suggestion that to have a sense of home and place and national region that you couldn't be European. The transcendence was in fact made possible by having a aspect of culture. And I think one thing that struck me more and more recently, and it was the time when I was studying anthropology, social anthropology at Manchester University, is that how in the 19th century the colonizing powers used anthropology to understand the people that they were dominating. It's not accidental that the majority of British anthropologists were lawyers who would begin analysing dispute resolution systems as a means of making your way into understanding the mechanisms of a community or a group. And yet when independence came, and after this in many cases, anthropology was not used by the liberated, the emancipated, to see how they would understand differences. Here they were on the continent of Africa, for example, with arbitrary lines drawn that took no account of difference of tribe or ethnicity or of language, the thousands of languages on the continent or whatever. And they asked the representative King Urisin at the Security Council said, we had to try and get on with it. But anthropology, think of where we are now and the tragedy we're doing now of trying, if we had anticipated how you resolve how the differences in any of these categories can be abused and fire up a conflict into terrible proportions. I think we must think in relation to this. We need anthropology. We need all the intellectual, moral impulse to understand culture. Could have been so useful in post-colonial circumstances in helping to recognise ethnic, linguistic and mythological influences, both shared and different. Austria, at the heart of Europe. Ireland, at the edge of Europe. Both peoples strongly European, both committed to multilateralism, both interested in alternatives to war, both countries with a long legacy within each and between of, in fact, cooperation in matters of culture and the spirit. I think it is a good place to be speaking of what might offer the citizens of Europe a real liberation and ever-enriching diversity of cultures, an ethical, sustainable model of economy in harmony with our vulnerable planet. Míle buíochas as activist club. Many thanks for listening.
And great to see you, and in great health and in a lot of energy, which is very can be seen here today. And that is my question. It is a personal one. Where do you get your energy? I'm serious. I know it comes from internal. I'm sure it comes externally as well. But give me an idea of the elements that make you happy, and where could we look for these elements in life as we go along? Thank you.
Oh God, there are bookshops full of books.
It would be much better than I always felt like saying, which was a really nice thing, I refuse to confess to being happy, but I think quite important. I stay in a kind of wonderment at the energy around me. Of course, the partner of all of my life is Sabina, and we've always been involved in different. I'm very pleased, for example, that it's a case of my children and their friends as well. They're very much concerned with what's happening around the world, and I think that's good. Personally, I'm totally against the aging thing. Just these people. Somebody's brought out a book and sent to me the other day, Mary Rose, about ages, and I said, for God's sake, I said, the main thing about it is that people say there are wonderful things about that. I actually don't say that really, but I miss not being as and so on. And I feel great defeated that I avoided COVID and then got it, and I'm still a bit exhausted. But you know, you're quite how at least I'm fooling someone anyway. But no, you're quite right. I do think. The one thing I would say to people about it, this is like Spike Baker said, stay curious. Stay curious and you'll do fine. And I think that's curiosity as well. But also as well, I have to be honest and say, in relation to those who know me and those what I've written and the kind of things that I've had a good modicum of rage bringing me through life. and there's no harm either.
I would say
called Abbey. Yeah, I have a picture. Yes.
Mr. President, Mrs. Higgins, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of my successor, Edward Nicholas, who is absent this afternoon, he has a funeral of our former Abbey Church organist. Her name is Ruth McGuire. But she is no Irish, she wasn't born in Ireland, but in the United States. It's an honor for me to welcome you in our Abbey and the very fine heritage of Irish people in Austria and Vienna.
And you didn't and you use the same school.
When I was elected president first in 2011, I went down there to write my acceptance speech because I know people like Mark Patrick and others would have been, and John Dillon would have been people I know for a long time, and a wonderful, wonderful artist, Woodturn, Kieran Forbes, who was just magnificent sculptor, or wood-turner, but it was beautiful work. Yeah. Ambassador Arengito agus sé íana Ilio Arengito sias is míle maró có jaman agus tá sé cosúli muinter na héirin haar lá. Haar na blianta ó na ham a capel me mar uptrán tugann sé áchas arm héin agus ar na fan céile saidin cosúle muinter na héirin sna háte gé súle agus muile tút cuairtifa gúla orm. I want this particular visit. I've had an opportunity of developing quite a friendship with President Alexander Van der Bellen. We are both members of our OLAF. We have met on a number of occasions. But I want to thank the embassy, and I want to thank all those who work in my own office and those who work in the Department of Foreign Affairs for the organisation that they have put into this visit. I realise as well that it has of course served as background. We're just coming out of COVID, and I know that for the Irish abroad, one of the particular incredible burdens to bear with those who couldn't visit home. Often circumstances at home were very, very important and had to be postponed as part of what we all had to do to comply with what was necessary. I think we're entering a new period. We're coming out of the darkness of the pandemic, coming out of the darkness of war. I think I have been saying in my different speeches, we must all use every element we can of both creativity and imagination to try and achieve an end to the killing, the achievement of ceasefire, humanitarian corridors, and meaningful discussions in relation to security and peace. I want to say I very much, we've had wonderful meetings, we've had great opportunities, and it's been a pleasure to Sabina and I to be here. We also visited, if I think of the Biotop City. It was interesting in many cases to have come this far to be discussing maybe one of Ireland's most urgent problems, housing. But there were great examples, and it is one of the great advantages of our membership of the European Union that we have an opportunity of seeing the examples that how other people are tackling problems and what they have been achieved. It seems at the end of this coming towards the end of this very short visit in time, that I've been here a very long time, because the meetings have been so valuable. The meetings have, I very, very much, I must say as well, because there are a number of people here from, I mentioned the international organisations, from the OSCE. For a very long time in my other life, I was a spokesperson on foreign affairs and a parliamentarian. But it was one of the most valuable meetings I have ever had. And of course, I think the work of trying to see one's way through the complexity of what we inherited by way of problems and the contemporary challenges. In fact, I was so struck by the brilliance of some of the analysis, and I joined with those whom I met at all of these meetings in seeing the most positive possible construction on what will happen in the future. It is in the darkest times that we are challenged to be most creative. But to be here in Vienna, in this wonderful city of the world, is a very, very great pleasure. So mille buikas, and may I wish you all, and you and your families, and to those who are close to you, health and happiness into the future. Barbanach, this got a mille machag.